Hi everybody, my name is Hannah and this is Pepper and Pine, and I have a mineralogy lesson to share with you today. We're working through our live education Waldorf curriculum for our mineralogy block, and today's lesson is on the limestone cycle. Now I am working alongside my 13-year-old daughter, and instead of doing chalk drawings for these lessons, I am working in a main lesson book. These main lesson books are 9 inches by 12 inches. They have just blank pages with onion skin pages in between. You can find all of the resources that I'm using for this main lesson block on the blog post that accompanies this video, and you can find that link in the description box below. So for this lesson, I'm actually going to be using the onion skin page between the two pages. Now, throughout this main lesson block, I have been removing the pages after we do our lesson. But early on in this main lesson block, I did use the onion skin page for a particular lesson where we did an illustration on it. And so when we got to this point in the main lesson block, this page was attached to that one. So I did not remove it, but it's actually going to be in our favor because I am doing both the limestone cycle on this page. Then on the flip side, I am doing the water cycle, which I think together coordinate really well. Even though the water cycle was not part of this unit, I did want to include it here because it seemed to be relevant. On the adjoining page, I am going to do the narration for this lesson. I found that writing my own narrations as I am preparing for these lessons has really helped me understand the content in preparation for presenting it. Now, I am approaching these lessons very differently than I have in the past. I have tried to use this main lesson block by this curriculum in the past, and I've gotten confused by its progression, and I've maybe done 1 or 2 lessons, and then I've dispensed with it and ended up using our books and other resources to make up the bulk of our unit studies and our main lesson blocks. This time around, with a little bit more time, I am attempting to do these lessons according to the curriculum, and I'm finding it very insightful. We started out with the 2 archetypal rocks, limestone and granite, the water rock and the fire rock. So limestone is made through a water process, and granite is made through a fire process, through magma. And so looking at these 2 rocks and then the minerals within them has really helped me understand the whole arc of these lessons. And now at this point, revisiting limestone and the formation of limestone, and now the work of water upon that limestone in order to bring those minerals back into the water so that we can create the whole cycle over again, has been a really beautiful way to end these lessons and bring it back to the beginning. For this lesson, I am using an illustration that is in the curriculum as well as another illustration that I found online. So the background of the illustration is drawn from the curriculum itself, but the foreground has more detail than what the illustration in the curriculum provided. So I did look online for another example of stalactites and stalagmites and the whole limestone cycle. And this is an image that I found that was both detailed as well as provided some captions for each of these different parts within the cavern. So I'm doing a cutaway of this plateau or this cliffside so that you can see the inside of the cave and the cavern and the formation of the stalactites and the stalagmites, as well as the water source that comes from above and then somewhat disappears into this cavern. And then in the background, you'll see some hills and mountains in the distance to show where the water source is actually coming from. While we've previously talked about the formation of sedimentary rocks, we are now going to be revisiting the same process for limestone. So limestone is created in the ocean after millions upon millions of little tiny organisms have died and floated to the bottom of the ocean floor. You can imagine it somewhat like snowfall because they are white, as they are calcium rich because of their shells and skeletons. Those then are compacted at the bottom of the ocean floor from the weight and pressure of the water above. Then through geological forces like magma pushing up onto the ocean floor and other tectonic activities, that compaction of limestone then raises up to sea level and even above sea level. Once it is above sea level, then the action of water takes on a new role, and that is to carve out these beautiful caverns within these limestone blocks. The carving out of these caves takes thousands upon thousands of years, and once these caves have been carved out, water then takes on a new role, and that is the dissolved calcium that is in the water then gets redeposited drip by drip, and these stalactites and stalagmites form in the process. One thing I would have done differently with this lesson is to choose variations of gray color to do the stalactites and the stalagmites, even though you can find them in these rich colors as well. I found that the detail was lost in the cavern because the stalactites and the stalagmites sort of blended in with the background of the cave formation. One other thing that I would highly recommend if you have the opportunity to do so is to visit a limestone cave and see these stalactites and stalagmites. There are many caves that are now dormant where they're no longer producing stalactites and stalagmites, but if you can find them where they are still producing these stalactites and stalagmites, being in a cave like that is phenomenal. They are in the southwest of the United States, so on the eastern side of Arizona into New Mexico and Texas are the ones that we've been to in the past. And the ones that are still living, they're considered living caves. You're not allowed to touch anything in the cave because your oil will prevent the formation of stalactites and stalagmites. And one other thing that's really phenomenal that you won't get from a lesson unless you're there is the humidity of these caves and the sound of these caves. And one other thing is the darkness of these caves. They are pitch black when they're not illuminated. The sound of the cave is very relaxing when you're hearing the drops. And then, of course, the visual is absolutely breathtaking. I'm labeling all of these parts of the cave using my fountain pen. It was a little bit more challenging to do this at the end of the drawing after I did all of the color pencil, just because of the wax content in the color pencils makes it a little bit hard for the fountain pen to stick. So if you wanted to label, I would suggest to label it before you do so much of your drawing, or just to label it with numbers and letters, and then you can add the captions and the details on the opposing page instead. I hope that you enjoyed this look at our lesson. Don't forget to check out the blog post that accompanies this video with more information and resources and links to the projects that we've done for our geology, earth science, and mineralogy main lesson blocks. And if you'd like to see how we're homeschooling on a daily basis, you can find me on Instagram at Pepper and Pine.